Okay, I'm 2 minutes from starting. Make as much noise as you can.
What?
Please be done in 2 minutes with what you're doing. Hey everybody, it's Jamie, and I'm glad that you're with me. Say hi in the chat when you get a chance. And today we are going to run a pre-recorded pre-interview because of what is going on at the Capitol, and yeah, it's got everybody spooked. So we are going to run this, and I will be on chat answering any questions you might have. So enjoy.
Okay.
Okay, well, I am pleased to welcome Ms. Heidi MacDonald of The Beat. And I have been a fan of your work for many years. And yes, full disclosure, we've been friends for many years.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, Jamie.
I really thought it would be a good idea to do a podcast that gave kind of answers to the questions I've been asking myself throughout my career. I mean, because when you do get to work with real journalists like yourself, you don't always know what they require. And I think it's a worthy exercise to talk to people about what things that you can do to prepare for success with a particular journalist.
Yes. Oh, that's a great topic, Jamie. Because, and it's one I speak on many, many times. Just for your viewers, listeners. I work in the comics industry primarily, but Jamie and I met when I was doing music stuff back in the day. And but I speak very often in comics about, how you should put together your press release, how you need to, present yourself. And it's not everybody springs full-blown marketing genius from the brow of Zeus, do they?
Right. Yeah. and you get a lot of inquiries, and journalists get a lot of mail, and it's our responsibility, at least I feel it's a publicist's responsibility, to figure out what's going to interest them.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yes.
For what you do, like even if somebody's not in comics fans are a great fandom to have.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So getting to you is a big step in that.
It is, and I feel like comics, though I will say that comics journalists and people who make comics have a built-in advantage in that they can send an image, and that image speaks for them very, very well immediately. So that's a big advantage, and it makes it a little bit easier for me too, because I get so many emails and every day, and over the years I've been doing my site for 15 years, so 16 years, and so I'm quite a mailing list. I'm on a lot of mailing lists, and I get lots of PR, and I still get PR from music folks from back in the day also, and which I don't open as much, but once in a while I do. So but I have a huge advantage in that if I get something that, like a headline that piques my interest, I open up email, I see an image, I pretty much know right away whether this is something that I'm interested in. With music, you don't, or film, don't quite have as much of a that advantage, I think. Well, or books.
Right. And I mean, if you're you're a music publicist and your band, like many bands now, gets into the world of comics.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to speak to that audience. So you're saying like maybe the right headline would help, a graphic might help, maybe a page from the comic.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a sense of what it's about, right?
Yeah, I absolutely. And I mean, and you're 100% right. There's so many music comics crossover. I have a good friend who runs a company called Z2. You've probably heard of it, and they do comics that kind of do custom comics. They do all kinds of comics that tie in with music, and they have really thrived during this year because nobody's touring. So everybody has time to pursue their little side hustle, right?
Yeah, yeah, and everybody also wants to work. Like every band member is home and they want to talk to press. That's
Yeah,
what they
yeah.
want to do because they finally can sit still and have the opportunity to do so. So
Yeah.
in that world of music comics, what would appeal most to you? A unique theme, or you know?
Well, I think it really comes down to, I mean, Jimmy, I think a lot of times it's just, the classics. Are they a great band? Like like Z2 just did a book with the Gorillas. So obviously, now the Gorillas are a very special case because one of the co-creators of the band is Jamie Hewlett, who's a cartoonist. So it's really been a collaboration between Damon Albarn and Jamie from the beginning. So obviously, when I saw that in my inbox, I was like, oh, I'm a huge Gorillas fan.
Yeah.
Other ones, I mean, for me, it's like, who do I like? Like, Z2 did a book with Paul Oakenfold. So that piqued my interest. Like,
yeah,
how on earth?
PM fan, right? So
Right.
We've been on Amon Tobin cruises.
Yes, we love our IDM, but I'm at the same time, I'm like, our electronic musicians just sit there noodling. So how do you make a book out of this?
Yeah.
But they collaborate. So I guess obviously it's the same. It's the same classics that you would do with anything. Like, does this person like IDM like I do? If you're sending me a country artist, probably not. But you never know. And I think with music, the great musicians. I mean, all great musicians, whether they're famous or not, are storytellers.
Right.
So if they're doing something that's expanding that kind of storytelling, whether it's via comics or video or so many of the modes that they have, I think that would pique my interest. If it's a great band, I just put down country, but obviously country songs are huge. They're storytellers. They're great storytellers. So I was all great musicians.
There's a lot of people from music that go into comics, or the reverse, I guess. I mean, Gerard Way, the guys from Coheed and Cambria, and Alan Robert from Life of Agony. Are you familiar with Alan?
I don't know him, but it's they're everywhere. I know the guy from System of a Down is huge into comics. He launched his own comics company. Who else?
A band called Eight to Nine Kills that I know just put out a horror comic. Because horror is a big deal with rock.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Who was really into comics and still is, I'm sure, is Anthrax. The guy from Anthrax. Yeah. So I mean, it's out of course, the greatest of them all, Kiss.
Oh right, yeah.
I mean, Kiss has been in a comic. Like, they were in one of the first graphic novels back in the 70s, and it was made with real Kiss blood. This is like a famous story. So when Kiss was at the height in the 70s, and they made this comic, and the gimmick was that they went and drew a little blood and put it in the vat of red ink.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's one of the best gimmicks of all time. And Gene Simmons, huge comics fan who grew up with a bunch of really famous comics creators. They were all just, Jewish kids hanging out in Brooklyn on the stoop, telling stories, and he's always around. Gene is always at Comic-Con, and so yeah, so it's a super, they're super adjoined, they're super connected, and I think one of the things that is really useful for musicians is, like I said, it's another form of storytelling, but also just from a very practical standpoint, it's another piece of merchandise.
Sure.
And it's another way for fans to connect, really, with that person that they admire and they look to for creativity. you know?
And it's definitely part of a well-integrated marketing campaign
Ones that
to
they're
do.
good at now. And I mean, we're seeing so many great voices emerge from TikTok,
Oh,
um,
absolutely.
which is like insane. And you know, Twitch. So I'm not a Twitch denier. I'm a Twitch. Um,
You're exploring.
I'm a Twitch expedition. Twitch position. Yes, yes, yes.
My experience with Twitch has been a really good one. It's very much about community, and more so than I like when I first started using like Twitter and Facebook and all the other socials. I was like, wow, this is a great way to build community. My my experience with Twitch has been that this is a better way to build community because you get to talk to the people that you admire, that you're a fan of. And I give the best example that I can give is Craig Mabbitt's Twitch. He was one of my artists at Better Noise. It's twitch.tv/CraigMabbitt. And like, he's got a great little community. They support each other. They talk about everything, and it's really great. So, you know, in community building, I think it's really important to have a medium like Twitch.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much.
And I also feel like comics people must love Twitch because it's really made for them, because the cons aren't around this year.
Yeah.
And to be able to have that bonding experience with artists, super important.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm really just beginning to explore Twitch, and I know that it is. There are quite a few comics artists on Twitch, and you know, again, it's not a medium that I seek out. And by the way, if anybody wants Heidi's #1 tip about anything, being successful, is so if you don't know something, hire someone who does, and don't be jealous of them. Just let them do their thing. You know.
Yeah. I trust experts quite a bit, you know.
Right. Yeah. So you know, if I'm not like you know, I'm not as big on Instagram, so you know what, I got one of my writers to do our Instagram.
Yeah.
And he's fantastic at it, and he's grown our Instagram channel by, you know, 3,000%. So, you know, it wasn't I mean, it's, you know, it's still only a few thousand, but you know, it's growing all the time. He's great at it. So anyway, but it's like, you know, if you don't get something, it doesn't mean that it's horrible, you know. It just means that you talk to someone who understands it, and you know, that's how you stay relevant. And that's just my series, my you know, how to stay relevant in a fast changing world. So yeah.
So
right. And Jamie, you're great at that as well, by the way. I'm super like impressed that you're dragging me into Twitch. So
I think you're gonna love it. I really do.
Yeah.
And you know, and I also like, something that I want to come back to is, I think it's really important that publicists read the journalists that they're pitching. You know, I don't feel like a lot of people do. Like, do you ever get like completely inappropriate pitches?
Oh, but I mean, you know, in the comics world, there's only a couple of outlets, and you know, like I'll get emails that are like, you know, dear Fred, like, oh, you forgot to change the salutation. No, I mean, it's okay. I mean, I'm not gonna cut you off, but
right,
you know, like, use your MailChimp a little better.
Yeah,
my friend. Or you cut and paste. And so, yeah, I mean, we're, you know, I like to
references something you wrote about.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I know, you know, if somebody references something that we wrote, I mean, you're so flattered and honored that, of course, you're going to try to do something. I mean, you know, that's just one of the things too. It's like, yeah, just try to be aware of where this outlet fits in the scheme of things. And, you know, look, Jamie, you are one of the best people I know at publicity, period. You know, you're a genius at it. And, you know, I've never heard you say anything that you're pitching that it wasn't tailored, you know, like, seriously, like
yes or no questions are a lot more easily answered. So like, you know, if you say, can you do something on my client? What's something? I don't want to put the burden on you, right? to figure out what the something is. But if I read it and I say, I loved that piece you did on Wonder Woman 1984, and I have a movie coming out that I think is really cool, and it's like that in this way, and you might like it because of X, Y, and Z. Like, I feel like that's the only way to do it now, because that's the only way to cut through the clutter.
Yes, and also, by the way, when you read something like that, you've become a partner.
Right.
You instantly become a partner. And you know, that goes from my point of view too. I mean, it's not like
a very big deal that the aspect of partnership and like not making things adversarial, because if you can't do it, it's not because you hate me or you hate my client. Like, you just don't have the bandwidth, or you just don't see the relevance to your audience, because you have a responsibility to provide content for an audience. So I have to be mindful of that.
Right, exactly. And you know, that also comes down to what are people going to be interested in. It's like, you know, hey, listen, would I like to have a video interview with somebody from Critical Role every day? Yeah. You know, who wouldn't, right? But you know, I mean, I don't, you know, it's hard to talk about what we do at the Beat without horn tooting too much, but you know, we've been around for a while. I think we're pretty respected, and you know, I try to only work with writers who are very smart about what their beat is, you know. And I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, you know, I used to try to do everything myself, and it's like, you can't. And now I just love it when I can get a pitch and with somebody whose work I like, but maybe I don't have time, and I can just say, oh, you know what, one of my writers loves this, and let me connect you. And you know, so that's you know, it really is. I've discovered more and more that we have a lot of strong voices on my site, so they're all getting pitched individually, and you know, those are smart publicists, because they know that I get 8 million emails a day, and you know, my bandwidth isn't that wide right now. So you know, they're doing the research, and that always pays off.
Yeah, research is really the key. Doing your homework is really important. And it's funny, every time I have an intern, I tell them that they need to do research and they need to learn how to do thorough research. And I always say, like, I have this artist, and this artist reminds me of this other artist. Look up this other artist, because they just put out a record, and see who's covering them. Because that's like our artist, and then we'll know who might be amenable to covering that. And I mean, when it comes to lifestyle coverage, like comics and such, like if I have somebody who's very knowledgeable about comics, then, you know, I got to comb through your site, find something you haven't done recently that we can talk about, you know, and then prep them to talk about it and then pitch. Like, there's so many more steps than people seem to think.
Oh, it's 100%. You know, Jamie, I remember one time you pitched me William Shatner. And, you know, and I'm like, I mean, I've talked to him before, and which is a once in a lifetime thrill. And I said, let me see if somebody else on staff wants to talk to William Shatner. Nobody wanted to do it. And I'm like, Amy is giving me 10 minutes with one of the most, you know, quotable people alive.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my, and it was fantastic. It was such a great 10 minutes. And he said all sorts of weird shit.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, you know, there you go. I mean, it's like, you know, you think, William Shatner, slam dunk, somebody's got to want to talk to this guy. And I was like, none of the kids are like, no, we don't, you know. I know he's problematic now, but.
Well, no, hey, you don't get comedy gold out of Norman. You know.
Yes, comedy gold. Yes. So yeah, so even that, you know, it just like you got to find that person at the outlet who's going to fall for it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, we were pitching a lot of old school stuff for the cons that I was working. And, you know, you have to find people that are around the age that might have interacted with these characters.
Right. That's such a shame though, because a lot of the old timers who just don't give a shit anymore, and they'll say anything, and you can ask them if you're curious. I mean, I'm an old timer, so it's like now I'll be like, oh, I remember the thing that happened back in the day. What? And and now they'll be like, oh yeah, it was just I was drunk, and who knew?
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that happened a couple of times with the people that I was working with from Mad Max. That guy that played like the main villain, everyone was asking him weird stuff, and he.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. So anyway, it's all levels. It's all levels.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think I keep coming back to in my mind what you said about a partnership, because we're all looking to make great content.
You're right.
Having that goal is important. Because, I mean, of course, like your client isn't always cognizant of, the purpose they need to serve unless you prepare them well. If you have somebody that's been doing it for a while, like a Tommy Lee, he knows what people want from him. But, if you're going in on an angle that's like, this guy wrote a comic book and it's a horror comic and it's really good and he knows a lot about old school horror. I've got to see who's written about old school horror for you and make sure it hasn't been too recently, because you're not going to do the same story twice.
Yes. But a wonderful graphic novel came out this year by an artist whose name is Trungle. Well, he's called Trungles, but I'm looking it up. His name is Trung Ly Nguyen. It's hard. He's a Vietnamese name, which are sometimes difficult for us.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a beautiful, beautiful memoir, kind of semi-autobiographical. So I have a very young writer who's also from Vietnamese, and both the stories about the Vietnamese immigrant experience. And I was like, man, I got to get Andrew to interview Trungles about this book. And like right when I was thinking it, Andrew emailed and said, I would love to interview Trungles.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that didn't take genius. Only a nitwit would be like, no. It's like, of course, this is, but sometimes the ideas that seem a little obvious also ignite a passion, though, right?
Yeah.
Because I think the things that you're talking about in these partners, it's like you said, everybody wants to create great content, and you got to have a passion for it, and even and believe me, I know when the publicists I work with who are passionate about what they do and really believe in what they do, and you want to do things with them.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I think to sum it up, because we don't need to make it super long. But I thank you for your advice for people, and I think the whole theme of this is going to be making publicists more prepared and making them able to see the other side of things. I think I don't think a lot of people think about the situation of the person they're trying to pitch.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, look, we're all there's so much, like, we're just inundated, like talking about TikTok. I mean, how do I keep up with the latest TikTok and the Twitch, the Discord and the Twitter, and all of that, and Facebook.
Yeah, well, that's for old people like us.
Yeah, so and it's funny. It is funny how, like, yes, I can safely ignore that now. Thank God. Woo.
Right. There isn't much you can safely ignore anymore, to be honest. Yeah. So I think that's great, and I hope that people are gonna take these and kind of learn from them. And
well, I'm sure, and Jamie, make sure I will absolutely pass along anything that you're doing about this, because believe me, like I said, people in comics can definitely learn, can learn a thing or two about publicity.
Well, and also to show like why what you do is important. Like, I've worked with teeny tiny little blogs, but if they put it together and they promote it, then sure, you really want to support new sites and blogs and podcasts. I mean, I remember back in the day, nobody would touch a blog, and I was supporting new bloggers.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like, you got to do it. It's the future of journalism, you know? I mean, you never know who's going to be big.
And I feel like also, just along that tip, you know, when we got started, when we first met back in the far off, you know, but if you know, Google, say when Google started, you look something up, you know, whatever you Google came up, and it would be like blogs. It would be like these little personal sites.
Yeah.
And, you know, now when you Google something, you know, it's Wikipedia, it's IMDb, it's, you know, AllMusic, it's Amazon. And then, you know, after about 4 pages, and then there's all those like pseudo who is a celebrity sites, like who is Tommy Lee married to? Like, you've got to get through all that homogenized, you know, stolen from Wikipedia crap before you get to good stuff sometimes. But good, you're right, it can totally be a small blog, you know, a passion site that
I would rather pitch to somebody that had 100 really passionate viewers that were going to go out and be evangelists for my client than a million who wouldn't even read the story. I mean, I just don't see why people don't understand that, but they often don't.
It's all kinds.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
And can you tell us your Instagram and you know, pages where people can find you?
So my site is the Beat, comicsbeat.com. You can find it on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I think we do have a TikTok. I didn't do it. I sent one of the kids to do it. And Comics Beat. I personally am Comics Ace with an X, COMIXACE. So you can find me on all social media, pontificating at Comics Ace. But Comics Beat, Instagram, we got some, you know, some hot news going up there. So, you know, if it's happening in comics, it's on the beat.
Yep. Absolutely, and everyone knows it. Well, cool. Thank you.
And that does it for our video interview with Heidi. Thank you so much for tuning in. And next week, next Wednesday, we will be here with Catherine Turman, and we will be live. The stuff happening at the Capitol has everyone on edge. So I appreciate your time checking this out, and you can send questions to me if you have any that you want to ask via Whisper. And thank you so much again. This is very exciting. Thank you, Heidi, for being my first interview. And we'll see you next week.